Wait. Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to my presentation. It is on the poem Blackberry Picking by Seamus Heaney. Nice. Okay, so now I'm going to insert the audio of Seamus himself reading his poem and a little picture. Okay, now that you've heard the poem, let's talk about what the poem actually means in simple English. So, um, what I interpreted the poem to mean is at the beginning of the poem, when they're talking about this time in late August with all the ripeness, basically, what I took that to mean is just a time of intense hopefulness. Some important words that made this stick out for me were the lust for picking and the hunger that sent us out. So that's basically when you get really, really hopeful about something and you feel a really intense desire to work really hard and seek out whatever goal you might have. So, after the poem, when the hunger sends them out into the fields, the person who's doing this blackberry picking, the speaker in this case, they are working their little butts off. They are just going up and down those rows of blackberries on their hands and knees, getting everything they can, working as hard as possible because they want it so badly. They finish working all day and they look down and there's tiny little thorns all over their hands from the blackberries. So, what I interpreted this to mean is all the little challenges and difficulties that you face on your way to achieving a goal. They start to, like Miss Churn always says, it's these little pinpricks, but over a long period of time, suddenly you look down and your hands are just covered in thorns. Maybe you're bleeding and you start to question whether this goal is even for you or not. And then, lo and behold, you just worked all day. Your hands hurt from all the thorns. You look down at your yield and they were rotten. They rot before you could even get to them. And you're like, this is so unfair. I want to cry. But then you just have to acknowledge, like, this really happens every time. But next late August, I'm going to be out there picking blackberries. Or, like, next time I want a goal, something similar to this, I'm going to risk everything and sacrifice everything to make it happen, even though it may not happen. So, what he could be hinting at is this poem, I think, is about coming of age. I think it's mostly about that moment of disillusionment in your life that's so intense that it literally rocket launches you into adulthood. So, for some people, close your ears, Sonia. For some people, that moment is the moment they realize Santa Claus isn't real and, kind of the magic and mystery in their life fades away and they're like, all right, time for adulthood now. For a lot of people, it's when a friend or a family member dies, and then you kind of are forced to come to terms with mortality and everything that means, no matter how young of an age you're at. And one that I think we can relate a lot to, not only the end of this poem or like just the poem in general, but every aspect of the poem. This actually made me think a lot of like the college process. So hold on a second. Let's go back through this poem and then we can see how it's like the college process. So the late August when the blackberries are ripening. This is like your freshman, sophomore year when all your hopes and dreams about going to a really, really great college are kind of like manifesting themselves in you. Like you're starting to get really excited. You're thinking about everything you can do with a degree. I don't know. You're thinking about showing off to your friends and family, right? And it's just going to be so sweet. And, you get that hunger, you get that hunger about it. And it sends you out with milk cans, pea tins, jam pots, and the grass is wet. It's not great. You know, you're trekking, you're picking until all your cans are full. So all this hard work you're doing, this is getting good grades. This is your SAT prep. This is, having your parents pay for tutors, everything like that. This is all the trekking you're doing. You are trekking. You are really going hard. Um, and then all the little tiny thorn pricks that are in your hands after all this, for me, that's like, you drop 3K on a private tutor for SAT prep and then you get your score back and it's lower than before. Or like, someone says something really discouraging to you that makes you question if you even can achieve what you want to achieve. Or maybe someone says something to you. Wait, did I just say that? I have no idea. All right, I'm a little sick. Oh, you get a really bad grade on a test or something, and you're like, you know what? I'm not cut out for this. Um, and then you get all your ducks in a row. Everything seems to be going good. You have everything in the buckets. This is like, say, I don't know, like November of your senior year. You're like, everything is done. I did it all, got my recommendations, everything is done, everything's in a bucket. And then you realize the sweet flesh would turn sour. And that's when you get your decision back. And everything you worked for just, I don't know, you feel like crying. It's not fair. And it's just the disillusionment when that happens, when you worked so hard and it's all for naught, is so intense that it really just like brings you to a new level of maturity, or a new level of like, wow, so this is what the world is like. um and then this, each year I hoped they'd keep but knew they would not. This is, you know that this was a hard experience. You got rejected, it's not good. But then you're still gonna probably apply to grad school, you're still gonna probably apply to different programs, you're still gonna work for new goals. And so this is really depressing. Some of your goals are probably going to work out, but like, you're going to go through the same kind of processes and you're going to get just as hopeful. And like, that's kind of what adulthood is about. It's about like getting really hopeful. Sometimes things surpass your standards, sometimes things meet your standards, but sometimes they don't. And I don't this poem just gets more sad the more I think about it. Okay. And so then, like, every year, like when you're trying again and it's not going to keep, it's you have this like sour taste in your mouth from the rejection before, or the hardship that happened to you before. And that sour taste is like, wow, I really went through all of that when I could have just paid a bunch of money and gotten into the same school like Aunt Becky. Quirky and with the times. Okay, next. So how does he do it? So the first thing I wanted to dissect here is stanza structure. And I actually experienced a little bit of difficulty discussing this, because in this Poetry Foundation version, as you can see, these are in two different stanzas. So the first stanza is all the hope you had before, all the work you put into it. And then next stanza starts, you find a fir in the bath of what you just collected. So that makes these two separate experiences, right? This is all the work you did, and then this isolates the disappointment, which is interesting, and I could see why that would be a stylistic choice of Mr. Heenley here, because, if you're going back next year, then obviously in your mind you're isolating the disappointment from the fun and the anticipation of before. But in this PDF copy that Miss Churn gave me, they are all the same stanza. Yeah, they're all the same stanza. So I don't really know which is the original way. I don't really know any, like, how I would find out how. But if it was all the same stanza, that means that the disappointment and the disillusionment has just kind of become part of the process. So then keeping that in there is even more depressing because to me that says like at least in adulthood, like there's no working towards your dreams without the inevitable disappointment that's tacked on to the end there. Like they're not separate things. It's the same thing. If you get your hopes up, if you work really hard for something, you're gonna be disappointed. There's no separation. It's just a part of the process. Get used to it. Welcome to the world, kid. So, yeah, that's kind of sad. The next thing is the rhyme scheme. For me, this rhyme scheme was really confusing because, I mean, at the beginning, I was like, is he trying to make it rhyme? Is he not really trying? Because, like, when you have words like sun and ripen, like, they're similar. Not, or clot and not, yeah, yeah. Sweet and it, for and hunger, it's like pots and boots. Like, it's definitely similar sounds, but it's kind of like shoddy. Like you never really get a clean, clear rhyme scheme. And at first I was like, oh, it's the accent. But then I listened to him say the poem, and it's not the accent. It just doesn't really make sense. Um, but I think that could also be kind of a reflection of the unpredictability of your outcomes when you are working for things in your adulthood. You know things aren't going to be clear cut, perfect rhyme scheme, whatever. It's unpredictable. There's challenges you could never anticipate. um and I mean, I guess you can anticipate it because right at the end here you get really clean rhyme. It's like whatever weird challenges come your way, if you're trying to rhyme cash and bush, it's all gonna end in rot and not, you know? Again, down the really depressing thing here. So, next. I thought of the whole thing as kind of a metaphor. So, because of that, it was really hard for me to isolate like just one thing. Like, there's no one like clause or like sentence that really sticks out to me as more of a metaphor than the rest of it. Like, the whole thing is one description, and the whole description serves as a metaphor to me. Um, but some of the more prominent lines, I think, are our hands were peppered with thorn pricks, and I've already kind of discussed that. That's just like the little like challenges that get in your way. Um, the diction is really, really prominent in the end. It's like pretty grotesque and gross. Like, the juice was stinking too, a rat gray fungus glutting on our cash. Um, the sweet flesh would turn sour. Yeah, this is some alliteration again with the sweet and the sour, which just make it kind of like sickly. I don't know. It's like along with the rhyme scheme, it's like I don't know. It's like childlike, but like twisted and like rotting. I just don't like the image of rotting things. It like creeps me out. Like what happens to a dream deferred. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, yeah. So that's basically my take on blackberry picking by Seamus Heaney. Did I spell it wrong in my thing? Did I put Heaney? No, I was right. All right. See you next week. Thanks so much for joining me. How do you